Is reverb making your vocals sound messy? Keep watching to learn the simple 3-step approach to applying vocal reverb that will make your vocals sound loud, professional, and radio ready. I'm Rob from musicianonamission.com, and in this video you're going to learn how to produce vocals that sound more like this.
Just hold on, it won't be too long.
But first, to make sure you get this right every single time, download the free vocal effects cheat sheet that will guide you through the process of applying reverb and delay to a vocal. Just head to the link you see on screen now. Okay, let's dive in. So let's dive right in with step number 1, which is to set up the reverb bus. So I've got a track here. I'm doing all the vocal processing on this aux channel because the vocal itself has been automated on this. So I want to add compression after the volume fader, so it's getting sent over here to this channel. And this is where I'm doing all my vocal processing. So we've got a pretty good vocal sound going on already. Let's have a listen to the whole track and then I'll solo the vocal.
Our story isn't finished, but it's a new beginning because Jesus is in it.
So it's already got a sense of space because I've got some stereo delay going on over here, which is literally just the stock Logic stereo delay, different time on the left and right to give it that width. I've got a mono delay down the middle, so that's just like an echo. But with this genre, I think it can really benefit from some reverb to give it that sense of shimmer, to help it to sit in the mix a bit better and give it that kind of final polished touch. So the first step is to add the bus, because if we added reverb directly on the channel itself, let's say we just grab any old reverb and we create the sound we want. We adjust the wetness here instead.
But it's a new beginning because Jesus is in it.
So what happens now if we decide, well, I want to shape this. I don't like the tone of this. It's a bit bright. I want to reduce some of that top end. Well, you can't, because if we add an EQ on here to reduce the top end, we're just reducing the top end of the whole vocal.
Our story isn't finished.
And that's not what we want. So instead, let's send it to a bus. And that means we have way more options. We can add as many plugins on that reverb bus as we want. So we're just going to create a new bus here. Let's go bus 14. That's going to, in Logic, automatically create a channel over here, which we can call vocal verb. So now this is where we're going to add our processing. And it means when we add the reverb, we can then shape it if we want to. We can do whatever we want to make this reverb sound exactly the way we want. So let's pull this next to it. And that's step number 1, create the bus. So now moving on to step number 2, which is where the bulk of our time is going to be spent, and that's shaping the reverb. So the first thing we need to do is just load up a reverb. And this is where, when we're talking about reverb plugins, there's a lot of variation between different plugins in the terms of the way they sound, but they all have similar controls. We normally have some kind of space or time control where we can adjust the length of the reverb. We normally have a distance where we can say how close we want the source to be. Often there will be some kind of brightness or tonal control. And that's pretty much it. They're the main things we need. The one we're going to be playing with the most is this one here, the space. So let's just get rid of these EQ curves that come standard. And we're just going to leave it on the default setting for now, and then we can play around with some different rooms in a second. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure it's 100% wet, because now we're using it on a bus. We don't need any of the dry signal here, because that way we're just duplicating the vocal. We want it to be 100% wet. And then we're going to set the send, which is this one here, vocal reverb, to 0 for now. And this is going to be really loud. I'm going to do this in solo just so you can really hear what's going on. But we're going to leave it loud to adjust the tone, adjust the room, and get the sound we want. And then we can drop it down, and that's going to be step 3. So let's start with the space. The biggest mistake I see time and time again is using too long reverb times. And that's a general reverb mistake. We're not specifically talking about vocals there, but especially your room reverb, that you've got everything going through. So here I'm using stereo room from Eventide, and my decay time is less than 2 seconds. You want to adjust this to the tempo of the track, but generally shorter decay times work best because long decay times add mess and muddiness to the track because the reverb's constantly ringing out, whereas shorter decay times will fade out quicker and not add to that mess. Now on vocals, it's slightly different. Because we're only using this reverb on the vocals, sometimes a long haul can sound really good, whereas other times we might want a tighter room sound. Now, there's no answer in terms of which should you use, a plate, a hall, a room, a chamber. Just try each of them out. Try to have an intention. So on this track, I know that I want this to sound quite lush. I don't want it to sound too aggressive, and it's also quite a down-tempo track, so we're probably not going to have to go too quick. And I'm just playing with the space control here. But if you have different settings, plate, hall, etc., there's no right answer. You just need to try them out, or decide first, do I want quite a short reverb or quite a long reverb? What's going to work for this track? If you're not sure, just experiment. So we're going to start with really long, and then we're going to pull it down until we find kind of a sweet spot where it just seems to feel nice with the tempo of the track and the speed of the vocal.
Isn't finished, but it's a new beginning, because Jesus is in it. Oh, my story isn't over, but it's been rewritten by the hand of glory. My story isn't.
That works well because what's going on here is it's fading out just before the next phrase starts. So it's not overlapping between phrases like this.
My story isn't finished.
And it's not so short that it sounds a bit jarring like this.
My story isn't finished.
So here we've got this sweet spot where it's short, it's not adding too much mess, but it fades out quick enough as well before the next phrase. So let's move on from there. Distance. We want the vocal to sound front and center. We don't want to put it too far back in the mix. So you want to avoid going far. And different reverbs have a different name for this control, but normally it's close far. And these are the reflections off the wall that make something sound close.
My story.
Whereas far is the reverb tail, the reverb ringing out in the room.
My story isn't.
So we want to start close and then just keep backing this off until we hit a sweet spot where it's just not as jarring, doesn't sound as odd.
My story isn't finished, but it's a new beginning, because Jesus is in it. Oh, my story isn't over, but it's been rewritten.
Cool, so that'll do, and I'm just speeding that up a bit there because it felt a little too long. Besides that, I'm not going to go into these other controls because they're specific to this reverb. They're the main two things you want to adjust: the space or the time and the distance. So now let's shape the tone, because what we're doing with reverb, we're not just adding space to the vocal, we're affecting the tone. So let's say if I boosted the top end here and added loads of brightness to the reverb.
My story isn't finished.
And without reverb.
My story isn't finished.
With reverb.
My story isn't finished.
It makes the vocal sound brighter because we're boosting that top end. Equally, if we cut the top end.
My story isn't finished, but it's a new beginning, because Jesus is in it. Oh, my story.
We're making the vocal sound duller. So reverb can affect the tone as well. Now, the way you want to approach this is to decide first, what do we need to do to the vocal? How can we improve it? What are the problem areas? Does it need to sound brighter? Does it sound harsh? Does it need to sound more aggressive? Decide that first and then shape the reverb. So let's have a listen, just without the reverb now, in the context of the mix.
My story isn't finished, but it's a new beginning, because Jesus is in it.
Let's check a couple of references.
Self-esteem, hallelujah, it's gone, all gone. Don't let go in this tough season. Self-esteem.
My story isn't finished.
Self-esteem, hallelujah.
My story.
So I actually think the vocal could sound a little warmer. We've got plenty of brightness on the top end. That's often the problem. We need more top end to make it sound more expensive. But in this case, I think we can make it sound a little warmer. So we could do this in a number of ways. With this reverb plugin, you can do it on the reverb itself, but we're going to do this just with a separate EQ here. And let's just try dipping some of that top end to make it sound a little warmer, and then we could even try giving the vocal some more body around here. So let's make that a shelf, and let's just play around with this a bit.
Isn't finished, but it's a new beginning, because Jesus is in it. Oh, my story isn't over, but it's been rewritten by the hand of glory. My story isn't finished, but it's a new.
Now let's check that in the mix.
My story isn't finished, but it's a new beginning.
So that's definitely adding some body to the vocal. I don't like cutting the top end that much, so let's back that off a bit.
My story isn't finished.
Cool, so now let's go to a verse where we can hear it more clearly.
Assures me
God said,
just hold on, it won't be too long. I got you.
So step number 3, now that we've shaped the reverb, is to set the level. And this is going to be very subjective. Always err on the side of caution. If you're not sure how loud to put the reverb, you probably need to put it quieter than you think, because it's easy to drench your vocal in reverb and then put it further back in the mix away from the listener. But at the same time, with this kind of genre, I think it's going to work quite well. We're going to drop this down to the bottom and then just bring it back up until we start to hear the reverb. And that's probably going to be the sweet spot.
Assures me
God said,
just hold on, it won't be too long.
I got you.
I got you.
And he said,
Just hold on, it won't be too long.
I got you.
I got you. Assures me
God said,
just hold on.
Let's mute the BV so you can hear this really clearly.
Assures me
God said,
just hold on, it won't be too long.
I got you.
I got you.
And he said,
Just hold on, it won't be too long.
So there we can feel it. It's not overly noticeable, but it's adding some warmth and shimmer to the vocal without putting it too far back in the mix. So let's solo that now.
Assures me just hold on, it
Without
won't be
reverb.
too long. I got you. Assures me
Without.
just hold on,
With.
it won't be too long. I got you.
Without.
Assures me
God said,
just hold on.
With.
Assures me
God said,
just hold on, it won't be too long.
So we don't want it to be over the top. We don't want to put the vocal too far back. We've already got quite a lot going on with those delays as well. So just having that tucked underneath is enough to make that vocal sit in the mix a bit better, give it a sense of space, and also improve the tone. Now, quick note here, in a lot of genres, you might not even want reverb at all. You might want to rely purely on stereo delays. Hip hop, a lot of pop music, hardcore music, metal, that kind of stuff. Adding reverb to the vocal puts it too far back, and instead we want the vocal to be really in your face. And you can achieve that with stereo delays to create a sense of space rather than reverb. So those are the 3 steps for applying reverb on vocals. But within each of those steps, there were quite a few guidelines, suggestions, starting points, settings that we went through in this video. So to make sure you remember these and actually apply them and get this right every time, be sure to download the free vocal effects cheat sheet. It's completely free and it's going to help you to make your vocals sound professional and radio ready. So just head to the link you see on screen now to get that for free. So that's all from me. I'm Rob from musicianonmission.com, and remember, create regardless.